Welcome to the second annual Loving Through Alzheimer seminar. EPAGA Home Care is proud to partner with MTGEC, Montana Geriatric Education Center at the University of Montana for this event. I am Julie Brubaker, one of the founders of EPAGA Home Care, formerly Agape Home Care, here in Kalispell since 2007. Today, we are teaming up with local professionals and family to share information that we hope can help you in whatever phase of the disease and caregiving you might be at this time. I'd like to start out with a prayer. Father, let us know your peace, which transcends all human understanding. Quiet our minds from the rush of daily life so that we may hear you better. Open our eyes so that we may see your glory which surrounds us. Still our hearts so that we may know the tranquility of still waters. Break down our walls so that we may fully come to understand just how deeply we are loved. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to be together and share information. Let us glorify you and bring forth comfort to those who are hurting. Amen. Today we are blessed with amazing speakers. Our goal is that just one of us might say something that gives you an aha moment, something that will bring you peace or that piece of knowledge that you've been seeking. At any time during this seminar, you can send us questions through Facebook Messenger. And if you ask your question through Q&A, the portion at the end of the seminar, we will then have you message us back your name and mailing address, and we will send you one of our door prizes. I have incredibly cool prizes, self-picked out. First is the 36-hour day. This book is a family guide to caring for people who have Alzheimer's, other dementias, and memory loss. We have a great book called Creating Moments of Joy along the Alzheimer's journey from Jolene Brackey, a national speaker on how to give joy during this difficult disease. And then also we have a book on how to survive 911 medical emergencies, a step-by-step before, during, and after. This family caregiver's guide is helpful for us to not wait for a crisis, but prepare and plan ahead. As it is quoted from the book, nobody ever wishes that they prepared less for an emergency. Thanks to Nancy May and her friend Robert for this insightful book, and it is available on Amazon. All of these is where I got these books. And this packet also will, if you get on howtosurvive911.com, you can get a free file of life. And what that is a packet of information that you can come up with your most current information. And if there was ever an emergency, you simply give that to the emergency personnel, and they have all of your information. Who is your doctor? Who is your contacts? Your allergies? Very, very important life-saving information. Our goal today is to share hope, love, and inspiration. But we also want to share general information that can help you in the community that you live in. Some options for help include agencies like ours. EPAGA Home Care started business in 2007 as Agape Home Care. As we have grown, we have decided to expand through Montana and further. We have chosen the franchise model for this expansion. And then when we went to trademark our name, we could not trademark the word agape. And as some of you know, agape is the definition of Christian brotherly love. As it's vital for us to keep that core meaning in our business name, we opted to spell it backwards. So that is why we are now EPAGA Home Care, spelled backwards. But basically what we say is that we're a reflection of God's love. So how home care works is that non-medical in-home care, for which we do, means that we simply do nothing invasive. If someone needs nursing care, we will couple up with home health. Or if somebody needs hospice care, we will team up with a hospice team. And so our EPAGA accredited caregivers work companionship to end of life. We work 2 hours to 24/7. Tasks include personal care, bathing, hygiene, exercise, meal preparation, grocery shopping, doctor appointments, and respite care, just to name a few of the things that we do. The programs EPAGA works with include private pay, Medicaid, we have a veterans contract, and some long-term party insurances do cover us. But be aware something that really seems to get confused with a lot of people is that Medicare does not pay for non-medical in-home care because they consider us to be custodial, and so anything custodial they do not cover. And that's a common fallacy that is out there. And then when you start looking for a home care, we recommend making calls to more than just one agency and really want you to get the feel for the company that makes you smile and where you feel relief that that person, that group really wants to be with you and they really can help you. Don't get me wrong. We want you to be part of the EPAGA family, but if we don't have the program available for you, we are then going to try to go throughout the community and help you find someone that can help you. There are the Area Agency on Aging's, life care management coaches, and other community programs that are an option. There are private caregivers available, but you must make sure that they are above board with their own insurances and background checks. If you do not hire correctly, and one of our speakers is Kerry Nagel, who will be up in just a minute, she does things right. She is above board on every minute of it. You pick someone like her to do your work, because if you do not, you do take the risk of when you pay somebody just cash, they are actually your employee. So you could really get yourself in a bind. Just be really smart about the people that you hire for your family. Also, in a world that has been turned upside down this past year when it comes to personal, loving, face-to-face communication, there is also a lot of virtual help online. And so in the Facebook world, there are lots of groups like the EPAGA Care and Share, Elder Care Success, Caregiver Connect, the Dementia and Alzheimer's Family Care Support, and Kerry actually has a Facebook discussion group as well. What you need to do is email her, and because it's a closed group, and she will then allow you access and tell you how to get onto her group. And her email is actually attendllc@gmail.com. And so internet information is Alzheimer's Association and caregiver.com are just chock full of information. Anything you need to know about any disease, not just Alzheimer's, is available. You just have to reach out and ask. Asking is the first step to getting the help you need. You must advocate for yourself, and it takes a village in life. So you must find your village. There is no shame in asking for help. It's vital for self-care. Rosalind Carter is quoted as saying, there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who need a caregiver. As you can all relate, this is one of the biggest truths in life. We're going to start with our first speaker. We have Kerry Nagel. She's a nationally certified dementia practitioner and owner of Attend LLC, a holistic dementia care consulting firm based in Whitefish, Montana. She is the creator of the Dementia Care in the Home workshop. This series of classes provides facts, concepts, and tools to help friends and family and professional caregivers working in a home environment. The workshop is offered through Flathead Valley Community College's Continuing Education program. The next series begins in April. When I asked Kerry to summarize her message for today, it literally made me cry. I actually cried. She said, I would like to deconstruct traditional wedding vows and explore how each line might pertain to caring for a loved one with dementia. For example, to have and to hold brings to mind thoughts of safety, both physical and emotional. For richer and for poorer leads us easily to the conversation about resources and planning. In sickness and in health means keeping the caregiver and the person with dementia in general good health. And finally, till death do us part. She wants to spend a good amount of time on this because there's a lot of grief issues, more prominent, she feels, with dementia than other diseases, specifically the concepts of incremental loss and ambiguous loss. Here is Kerry Nagel.
Well, thanks, Julie. Hello, everybody, and happy winter. As Julie said, I would like to deconstruct our wedding vows. I take thee to have and to hold, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. To have and to hold. Yes, this does go to the idea of safety. When we are held, we feel safe. When we hold space for someone, we're giving them our safety. Safety is one of the big hallmarks of dementia care. In the home, we think about physical safety. In the kitchen, putting knives in a less obvious place, taking knobs off the stove. In the bathrooms, we want to have grab bars by the toilet and inside the shower. Think about tripping hazards, good lighting. In the doorways, either we put a little bell on them or an alarm, double lock doors, so there's a key for the outside and the inside. These are the kind of things that we learn. Unfortunately, most of us learn these the hard way. But anytime you can write up a list, try to be proactive about it. You don't want to wait until that day when you come out of the bathroom and your loved one is down the street because it's a sunny day and the puppy next door is out. You want to put those locks and do things as proactively as possible to keep your loved one safe. But the other kind of safety I want to talk about is emotional safety. Dementia is scary enough, and our loved ones feel it in their brains well before we're aware of it. They need to be safe to make mistakes and not have us correct them. They need to be safe to search for words and not be cut off. They need to be safe to tell you that they're scared or to express their frustration. They need to be safe to forget how to play a game but know that you'll still play with them. And they also need to be safe to know that you will still take them out in the community. I think it's super important to keep their relevance going. There's something about dementia that, we can either claw our way through it or we can sink more easily into it. And our loved ones will be able to sink more easily into it with less stress if they know that we are supporting them and keeping them safe the entire time. One of the things I talk about quite a bit in my workshop is the concept of anchoring. I've had quite a few people tell me that, because I ask, how does it feel? How does it feel to you when they forget something? And I've had quite a few people tell me it feels like I'm floating away. And so the idea of anchoring is something I spend quite a bit of time talking about. And you can tell when somebody is starting to float away, they find their own anchors. It's their grounding devices. They can be things, they can be places, they can be people and pets, they can be actions. And when I think of things, I think about that ratty old purse that you wish your mom didn't have to bring with her everywhere. It's embarrassing, you just want to toss it out. And inside is what? A huge pile of Kleenex. Some are clean, some are dirty. There's a watch in there that doesn't work. There's old ID cards, lipstick. Whatever it is, there's something about that purse that connects her to the person that she sees herself to be. It's our challenge as caregivers to not only acknowledge that and try not to judge it, but to become active in it. If there's somebody who can't quite make it out the door and they're antsy, some people literally turn in circles, they're missing one of their anchors. So to look in that purse and go, you don't have your lipstick. Of course you need your lipstick. Get the lipstick and then see how much easier it is to get them out the door. Other things that are anchors might be wallets or keys, photos, little rocks, coins, wedding rings, particular kinds of jewelry. With some observation and taking notes, you will find out what your loved one's anchors are. And let every caregiver in the home know what those are. They are tools for you. One of the other things that I see as good anchors is actions. And once I start talking about this, you're going to go, yep, I know what I know what the actions are. Folding, stacking, putting things in a row. there's a sense of putting things to right, of taking chaos and making order out of it. And especially during around 3 or 4 o'clock, if you've got somebody who's antsy, they might be suffering from sundowner syndrome. And if your loved one is a folder, get all the towels out, drop them all in a big messy pile on the couch, let them start folding. It's that repetitive nature, and there's something that really grounds them and calms them down from that. Places can be anchors. I had a client once say, it's so difficult for me to get ready for dinner because she's always in the kitchen. She's always following me. She's always in the way. And I go, you know what? Until about 4 years ago, this was her kitchen. And this was her space to create beautiful things for her family. So you got to let her in. Give her something to do at the end of the counter. She's got to be in the kitchen. That's her anchoring spot. Guys might have the garage or a wood shop that's their anchoring spot. Maybe take all their tools out and have them line up all their tools or clean them. That way you get anchors in action and in place to help them calm down. Beings as anchors, you will know if you're a being if you're the one being shadowed all day. Other people use pets quite well. And if your loved one really likes cats but you don't have a cat, remember that the Humane Society in Kalispell has a kitty room. And that's a really awesome place to take somebody. And if they're into dogs and you don't have a dog, Kalispell and Whitefish both have dog parks. And in nice weather, you're out walking, you get that movement, fresh air, sunshine, socializing, watching dogs play. There's nothing better. So that's my spiel on anchors. The next line, for better or for worse, I want to take this opportunity to really debunk this myth of, Alzheimer's. It's the worst thing that can ever happen. We have to remember the better part of that, for better or for worse. And it's our challenge as caregivers to look for the better and to acknowledge the better and to celebrate the better. Because there is better in every single day. We just have to look for it. It's a practice, and you will get better at finding the better. The key is to stay relaxed and to stay open. Because our society, I think, spends so much time asking us to work through lists and to go through an agenda for the day, to multitask at all times. Dementia asks us to drop all of that and to focus on one thing at a time and do it intentionally and do it with our best foot forward and with very much thoughtfulness. The journey is long. It will change you. It will exhaust you. It will expand you. But in a word, it will better you. For richer, for poorer. This is a big one for a lot of families. Much of dementia care, as Julie was pointing out, is out of pocket. There's not a lot that the medical community can do once you're into middle and late stages. And skilled care is not, dementia care is not considered skilled care and therefore isn't picked up by insurance. So I have had families tell me that they feel like they're flapping in the breeze. In order to figure out what your resources are, and I'm not talking just money, we have all kinds of resources that are human resources. It's easiest, I think, to get as many family members in a room as you can or on a conference call and really put pen to paper and figure out who can do what, and whatever shakes down is what your hiring needs are. So I would highly suggest that the family deal with medical issues, have hopefully one person will be the patient advocate. That's the person who takes the loved one to medical appointments, keeps the notebooks, looks for patterns, asks the doctor all the questions, has the medical list, understands what the medicines do, and really takes charge of that. There are other things like long-term decisions that need to be made that the family should be making. Who's the power of attorney, medical power of attorney, What are you looking for your care plan? What about long-term and end-of-life decisions? Try to make those while the person with dementia can still be active in that conversation. We all have a right to be in on the conversations of our own end-of-life care. With the rest of the things that need to be figured out, friends, neighbors, church groups, and volunteers can help with companionship, exercise and movement, hobbies, cooking help. And then the other things that you might want to hire out, if your family's anything like mine, there's not one person in the family that is handy. So you might want to get somebody to help with home maintenance, housekeeping, companionship care, and I want to talk a bit about this. Julie referenced it, but if you have a reputable agency or an independent caregiver that you have really checked out, start them in companionship care before you think that you need it, so that by the time you really need that care, there's already trust built up, there's a rapport built up, there's friendship built up. So when mom needs to get in that shower, no longer knows how to sequence, the gal she's been having lunch with and shopping with for the last month is going to be a friendly face that can help her with that. And as her needs start growing, the caregiver starts stepping in more and more. And anytime you can do a gradual, easy transition, it's so much nicer for everyone involved. The other things you might want to consider hiring out would be a dementia coach or a navigator, which is what I do, kind of a bridge between the medical community and the families, and financial advisors or elder law experts. And we are very lucky in the Valley to have a woman named Jennifer Crowley, and her firm is called Eagle View West. She's an expert on that kind of stuff, because that's a maze unto itself, and she can help you with that. And a quick word about help. If somebody says, oh, let me know if you need anything and let me know how I can help, write their names down and try to get a little list going on your fridge, small things, so that if somebody stops by, and I realize we're in the middle of COVID, but I'm kind of speaking generally. If somebody stops by and says, is there anything I can do for you? You know what? I got a list on the fridge. Have them sign their own name to whatever it is they like to do. Don't ask someone to cook if they're not a really good cook. They're not going to want to do it. And when they turn up to help, thank them and remember, and if they come back and say, if there's anything else, ask them again. I think we just have such a hard time asking for help in this country, and realize when we're accepting help from somebody, we're also, in turn, letting them know that when it's their turn, we're going to show up for them. It's how it should work. In sickness and in health, some dementias, especially Alzheimer's disease, is gradual. It leaves the body alone for a while, but marches on in the brain. The progression is intermittent. It feels all of these dementia diseases, they feel elusive. They require explanation. They're roller coasters. And in many cases, they are woefully long-lasting. It seems like there's not really much of a guideline for any of it. And part of that is because every dementia is so completely different for each person. It just doesn't feel the same in any household. So your main guideline is to show up put both feet in. Don't be toe dipping in this one. You got to go in with both feet and with every bit of intention and love and creativity you can bring, and also bring your sense of humor, because you really, really need that. Ask for help and ask again. Keep your loved one as healthy as possible. Dementia is enough. You don't need diabetes and heart problems on top of it. And while I'm talking about health, remember that heart-healthy living is also brain-healthy living. So a heart-healthy diet like the Mediterranean diet, lots of fruits and vegetables and lean meats, are also really good for the brain. Exercise and movement, and I always say movement because most people are pretty well past pump and iron at the gym. You're wanting to get them out into the park for walks and fresh air. stretching if you can do that, any range of motion exercises. Hydration goes right along with good food. You need to keep people hydrated, either with water or their favorite beverage, or with apples, juicy fruits, watermelon, that kind of thing. Sleep is huge. When we get a full cycle of REM sleep, our brains start dumping the junk from the day. So the more junk we can dump in sleep, the better. Massage their muscles, moisturize their skin. Don't forget their feet. Up their dental appointments, especially once they've started really not understanding how to brush anymore. You got to get that dental care going, because you do not want to deal with mouth infections down the road. And remember to do all of these things for yourself. Self-care is huge. The last section I have to talk about is Till Death Do Us Part. This is a difficult one. We lose our loved ones with dementia slowly. We lose them bit by bit. And yet I'm not sure that we are grieving them bit by bit. The incremental loss, I first started really understanding this when I had a daughter say, my mom kind of left me years ago. I thought about it all day, and I thought, okay, so if you feel like your mom left you years ago and you're at her funeral dry-eyed, when did you grieve? You're not grieving at the end. Did you grieve along the way? If you don't, you've got all this grief in your body. You're going to carry that with you for a very long time, if not for the rest of your life. So I think it's a really important thing to talk about. There are two ways of thinking about the loss of cognitive abilities. If it goes down in a step, Mom forgot how to put her makeup on. Dad didn't know how to tie his shoes today. Somebody just peed in a trash can. They're no longer knowing how to tie their shoes. Each one of these things are a small moment during the day, but that's the moment you want to grab onto. That's the moment you want to think about for two reasons. One is you may have to change your care plan. If there is an issue in cognitive ability loss, check out your care plan. And then the second reason is I need to note this for myself. This is something I need to take a moment for. It doesn't have to be big. Take a moment to grieve. Call a sister or a friend, write in your journal, take a walk and just think about it, light a candle, do something to mark it. We are very good at marking the end of someone's life. We have funerals, we have receptions, we have cards, we have the casseroles, but there is no hallmark moment for when your mom forgets your name. But we all know what that feels like. And we have to mark it, we have to grieve it, because we don't want to be the dry-eyed person at the funeral. It's a long, slow process. And by marking these losses, it keeps us a good reality check for us, and it's a good grief check for us. The other kind of loss that I find is really particular to dementia, well, not particular to dementia, but it's because I think during Vietnam we saw a lot of MIAs and POWs. This is the same ambiguous loss. They are gone, but they're not gone. They're present, but they're absent. How do you live with that? And we all live with it, especially spouses. You're with them 24/7. This is not the man you married. This is not the woman that you used to have these long, lovely discussions with. They're still there. You can see them. You understand. You get that spark through moments of the day. But there's still this strange balance that we have to try to make. It doesn't feel comfortable. But one of the best things I think we can do is just try to tolerate and become comfortable in this discomfort, to try to hold these two competing thoughts in the brain at the same time. There's no way around it. We have to find that rebalance. As the dementia changes, the balance will change. And as the balance changes, we need to always be holding on, like how do we How do we hang on to these two thoughts? We just have to. We have to hold it. The other thing for grief counseling, I think is super important for these complex griefs. Try to find somebody who is not only a grief counselor, but kind of has an idea of dementia and about complex grief. And think about yourself also after your loved one has either gone into a memory unit or has died. There's this, all of a sudden you have time. What do you do with your time? Dementia care can be a really long haul. If you've been taking care of someone for 10 years, there's a really good chance that you have quit your job or you've quit school. You've lost friends. Maybe not lost them, but they've definitely faded away. You haven't worked on any of your hobbies for a very long time. You've probably had a role reversal somewhere along the way. It's hard to find your way back from this. There's a hollowed out feeling at the end. And grief counseling, I really feel, is something that we can all seek support with, and support groups help quite a bit as well. The last point I would like to make, and this kind of circles back around to the wedding, we invite friends and family to our weddings to help us celebrate and to bear witness to our vows. These are the people who gathered on that day to support us. Others have been added to our group over the years. Still more will be added in the future. All of these people are here for you. We live in community. We survive by assisting each other, by bearing witness to each other's celebrations and heartaches. As philosopher Ram Dass says, this is my favorite quote of all time, we are just all walking each other home. Thank you.
I was on the phone one day, and whoever was on the phone, I forget particularly what it was, they asked me, and what's your husband's birth date? And I couldn't remember the day, the year, the month, nothing. It was gone out of my head. And I said, whoa, I'm going to have to call you back. And that was a pretty telling moment if you have an aha moment with this. And that literally sent me to a neurologist. We then decided to tell our adult children individually so that they could each ask their own questions about how would it affect them or what their reaction to it was.
It never crossed my mind that would happen to her, because she's just always been someone who I could always count on. She was always that strong person. So to finally realize that she was going through this, that this was happening, was shocking to me.
Thank you so much, Kerry, for your wonderful words. We do appreciate you so much. And if you'd ever like to see Kerry again, of course, check out that Flathead Valley Community College Continuing Education. She has workshops coming up this spring, and she is available at Attend LLC. Some other information that I did not give you earlier, and we have this available, that if any of you would like us to mail this to you, we have a lot of different handouts from Alzheimer's Association. And when I tell you that there's information on this website, there is so much information. Understanding the disease, a caregiver stress check, you've got to take care of you. Online caregiver resources, and just more and more. Also, in our Flathead community, there is a book that comes out. It's called The Answer Book, and this has every single nonprofit or church involved in the community. So there is lots of stuff out there, and some people just don't know where to start. You've got to ask questions and find that person that's going to give you answers. Our second speaker today is the lovely Marty Meyer. Marty spreads hope like wildfire. Her passion is to restore women's honor and value. She is straightforward and a woman of integrity. As a life coach, she counsels those who have been broken, devalued, and abused. Using a personalized approach, women are guided through their own brokenness in order to experience wholeness. She is committed to helping them unlock their God-given passion, purpose, and potential. Born in the Netherlands, Marty is a mother of 2 amazing children and married to her devoted husband, Tim. She is a speaker, worship leader, and certified pastoral counselor. Marty will be speaking about how we are more than just our brains and our memories. It's the power of love that goes beyond just our hearts and minds and reaches our spirit. God made us this way. Just because the mind no longer functions doesn't mean it's not capable of receiving and feeling love. Welcome, Marty.
Thank you, Julie. What an honor to be with you all this morning. I have a message that is on my heart, and just a little bit about me. My grandmother passed away with dementia when she was in her late 60s, and I didn't know her very well as a little girl growing up in the Netherlands, but as I was preparing for this talk, I remember conversations that I had with my mom about my grandma, and I remember saying to my mom, "How was it for you when you would try to connect with her? Like, what is it like?" And she said something to me, and she said, "Well, you know, Marty, I believe that God made us with intention, and he made us so detailed that there's a part of us that is called our spirit, and that part is always very present." And it brought me to a Psalms that I want to read with you. It's Psalms 139. And what I love about this scripture verse is that it's often quoted in times of uncertainty when we question our value and our worth. Do we even matter? And we think that we are just another human. "For you, O God, created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works and the works of your hands are wonderful, and I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes, O God, saw my unformed body, and all the days of my life were written in your book before even one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the number of them." And I love that God created us with such tremendous detail, intention, and most of all, love, that we are more than just a body with a soul. We have a part that's deeper than our soul, and that is our spirit. That is the deepest and most hidden part of our being. That's the part that belongs to God. With our spirit, we connect with God. We can take him in. We can receive from him. 1 Thessalonians 5:23 talks about that it is God that wants to make us whole spirit, soul, and body. And it is the power and the beauty of this love that he created us and fashioned us with his beautiful hands that reaches beyond our minds, beyond our memories, and connects with our spirit. I remember my mom sharing with me, and I mentioned it earlier, that even though her mom was suffering with dementia, and although outwardly she couldn't respond, that her spirit could always sense love. And there was a time when my mom would talk about, singing her favorite hymn and watching her mom's eyes come alive as she began to just sing different phrases, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved someone like me." And just that alone would bring this look of awe and connection that my mom was able to celebrate right at that moment. I have another girlfriend that I called, and her name is Laura Lee, and she's a friend of mine in Canada, and her mom right now is walking through dementia, and it has been such a journey for my girlfriend. But her relationship with her mom is one of the most beautiful relationships that I have seen. And to me, it's love in action and the power of love, and why I chose to talk about this. When I was asking her some of her personal insights that she could share with me, she would tell me that for her, Alzheimer's is a continual state of mourning. Not that she's depressed every day, but that she feels like she loses her mom over and over, again and again. But when she comes to visit her each time, she has no expectations, none. Instead, she asks herself these questions, which I loved. Where in my mom's mind is she today? Is she at work? Is she a young girl today? Will she remember me? What role will I play today? She said, Marty, wherever my mom is at, that is the place where I go as well. I take my mom right where she's at, on good days and on bad days as well. I touch her gently. And on days when she says her mom wants to hug her, she said that she will literally dive into the wheelchair with her mom and just let her hold her so tight. She celebrates her in each and every moment, wherever she is and whatever age that she is at. She has allowed her mom to grow her hair longer because she said it's so beautiful to just brush that hair and to put bows in her hair and barrettes in her hair and to sing to her. And other times they have conversation, and sometimes it's just pushing in her wheelchair. On difficult and combative days, those are the most difficult. But like my own mom, Laura Lee tells me that to love her is consistent. Though not always easy, one time she told me about how she could not stop the flow of tears when she was taking her mom into the bathroom so she could use the toilet. And her mom would push her away and didn't want to be with her. And she said, although I tried to hide my tears and I was praying silently, in that moment, her mom saw her daughter's face and gently began to wipe the tears off her face. And she said, in that moment, I celebrated my mom wholeheartedly, and I was so thankful. She tells me of another time, and I love this story, that she was pushing her mom down the corridor of the facility where she's staying, and one of the amazing caregivers was walking down the hallway. And at the exact same time, with the same influx, they went, hello! And she said it was like a stereo sound. And she just put her hand on her heart and said, Marty, it was like, oh, I carry a piece of my mom. We said it in the same way and at the same time. And moments like that are such God gifts to be celebrated. Loving her mom in whatever state that she is, all of it reaching her spirit when the mind and the body are unable to respond, brings such hope. And this is the power of genuine love, that we are loved and that we can love in whatever state that we are in. And this is how God loves us. On days when we are doing really, really well and thriving, on days when we struggle and when we're angry and combative and want space, days when we recognize and value our own family and friendships, and then those days when we forget all of the blessings that we have been given. God meets us where we're at. He never pushes us away. It says in Genesis that when he created, he said that it was good. And no matter what state that we find ourselves in or those loved ones that we are caring for, they are good gifts. The gift doesn't diminish because the body and the mind diminish. God makes no apologies for us. In closing, may we never forget what God can do through all of us for someone who is suffering. May we all see those who are struggling with dementia through his eyes. In a quote by Stacy Ruth Stooling, she says, "Love, true love, never ever dies. True faith always thrives and is alive. And Alzheimer's does not equal eternal defeat." Thank you so much.
Many times when I visit my mother, she's a little bit unsure of our roles in each other's lives, who we are to each other. I remember very vividly the very first time that my mom was talking to me and looked right into my eyes and didn't know who I was. It was shocking, and it kind of rocks your world a little when your own mother doesn't recognize who you are. Interestingly, my parents were married for more than 20 years before they were finally able to have children, and often my mom will make reference of her longing to have a family of her own, as though she doesn't have one yet. If my mom is convinced that I'm someone else, I don't necessarily correct her. I will often join in on her memory and just play along. But in this particular instance, as I was wrapping up our visit and letting her know I was going to head home and that I loved her, she got confused and asked the question of who I was to her. And I answered her truthfully.
But I love you.
I love you too.
It's nice to see you.
I love you more and more all the time. You're special. You're special.
Thank you.
I'm lucky to have a mother. You are my mother, aren't you?
You're my mother.
Huh?
You're my mother.
I thought I was the mother now.
Yep, you're the mother. You're the mother.
Well, I go to those things all the time, and I guess I think I'm a mother now.
You are a mother now. You waited a lot of years to be a mother.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Wow, just wow. Thank you, Marty, so much for your beautiful message and sharing with us today your friend's journey with her mama. And this is a great example of different people and how they're dealing with these issues. And it's just lovely to hear the different stories. And I think one of the things that we haven't mentioned that we should always think about is let's pray for these people. They need our support. And there's just one guy that's really in charge of this all. So we need to just ask him again and again to help our friends and our loved one with this. The other thing that I did that's kind of my bad is I forgot to tell you guys you better grab your tissues, because every once in a while there's a moment where it's just the waterworks are coming, and it's just this topic is really deep. It's really emotional. But look at this village that we're creating today, just being together to share these words of wisdom. Speaking of words of wisdom, I am so excited to ask Bonnie Upton to come up and speak with us. She is a member of Stillwater Lutheran Church. She is a vital part of the music ministry every Sunday with her beautiful piano playing. And she has been a family caregiver with her first husband have had Alzheimer's. Bonnie has composed a reed called Things to Do to Make Life Easier when your spouse has gotten the dreaded disease Alzheimer's. Her love of the Lord, people, and her sassy sense of humor helps us to see a down-to-earth, loving way to take care of a loved one. Please join us, Bonnie.
I differ with this words of wisdom thing that you said. I'm sorry. I hope I don't have this frog. What's it like to go on a journey into Alzheimer's with a loved one? It's heartaches and headaches and stress. It's laughter and tears and blessings, all bound up with love. Bob and I worked side by side day after day at our carpet studio in Whitefish, and I began noticing some changes in his behavior, especially after he returned from a class reunion back in Wisconsin. And most of his classmates were already retired, and he wasn't. We were right in the middle of, really busy with our store. And I thought that was the excuse. I mean, I was kind of thinking, he wants to retire. This is why he's changing, because instead of hopping up when somebody would come in the store to go and wait on them right away, he'd leave it for me to do, and that wasn't normal. He would sit in the office and watch TV instead of coming out to meet with the customers. Just things like that. When he would take messages on the phone, he wouldn't get them right. When he'd write them down, later we couldn't even read what he wrote. All of these changes were taking place. And we were kind of making excuses, like first it was, his hearing must be bad, and then maybe his eyes are getting worse. You know how you do? And we did that too. But so actually, when we finally got him diagnosed with Alzheimer's, when we had that appointment, and that's what they said, for me it was a relief, because finally I knew why he was acting the way he was. Before that, I'd get impatient with him and wonder, why aren't you out there? No longer, because now I knew it wasn't the same for him, and it wouldn't be the same for me either. I had always admired caregivers, like the special education teachers at the schools or the nurses or whatever, and I thought, what a gift they have, how awesome. And here I was, all of a sudden confronted with the thought that I was going to have to be a caregiver. Well, obviously, I turned to God because he had to do what I could, and he did. He helped me through that. One of the first things I did after his diagnosis was I told my family, I told my friends, and I told my neighbors, you mustn't go it alone. They need to know why he's acting the way he is. And if you don't tell them, they're going to be like me and wonder, what is wrong with this guy now, So be sure you tell people so they know. And they're going to be a lot of help later on when you really need it. And I did keep a journal, like has been mentioned here. Do it. It's great for the time. It's good to release some of that in a journal, but it also, I go back and I read it every once in a while. I mean, I got a thick one that's typewritten. And I read it once in a while, and I am so in awe of all the blessings there were in that, and all of the laughter, the good things that were in there. And after the fact, it's a lot easier to look back and find those things, to look for it and see it. So I'm going to share some of the things that I learned going through this. This has been said before. Don't expect anything. You won't be disappointed if he doesn't do what you thought he should do. And not only that, you won't worry about the things that might never happen. When I went to a seminar about Alzheimer's, and I learned some of all the things that were in this step and this step and this step, and I thought, but most of that with my situation with my husband didn't happen. So don't worry about things. Don't think about the things that might happen. They might not. And remember that none of his actions are purposeful. He doesn't mean to antagonize. It's not him anymore. Obviously, I'm using him because it was my husband. And whenever he does, excuse me, whenever he does do something that's good or whatever, be sure you use thanks and praise, to keep that in there. I'm so sorry. This is, oops. I thought I had these. Accompany him to places where he's accustomed to going. My husband bowled on a team, and so I went with him bowling so that he could keep up the bowling. But his bowling buddies were just great because I had told them, they knew what was going on. So they'd make sure he put his shoes on the right feet because it didn't always worked that way, that he picked up the right ball when he was going to bowl, and that he was on the right lane when he was throwing it. All these things they just did. They were so good to him. And the lady at the counter, when he went up and got himself a cup of coffee and walked off and didn't pay for it, she wasn't surprised. She was fine. People are so understanding and laugh a lot. There's going to be a lot of funny things that might happen. So go ahead and laugh. Like my husband putting my shoes in the shop. I was looking all over for the shoes I was going to wear to work. They were in the shop. Or, different things like that when he went in the shower with his clothes on. You can laugh about these things. It's okay. And then do things that make life easier for you. And she mentioned that thing that I wrote the last time we had this. Continue your own activities. My husband stuck to me like glue. I guess I must have been his, what was it you called it anyway? Yeah. Because, he was right by my side all the time. He went along to Ladies' Aid and to choir practice, to church. Anywhere I went, he was there. And everybody was so good to him. And anytime somebody has an opportunity to be good to somebody like that, they are blessed. Not only are we blessed because they're doing it, but they receive a blessing. So keep that up. I remember one time at the fellowship dinner, and she was talking about that too. He sat at the table, and he didn't eat, but the rest of us were eating and visiting, and he was sitting there, and he would take people's glasses, and he'd dump their water in somebody else's glass, and then he'd take another glass. And he was so busy the whole time, and nobody said a word or flinched, nothing. They just took it in stride. This was what he wanted to do. Just, once again, people are just amazing when this happens. I think more and more people are familiar with it now, and so it's not scary to them anymore when things like that happen. And there's lots of help at the grocery store. People are always opening the door, or carrying your groceries, whatever. Remember, at the checkout counters, how there's always all this stuff that you can get at the last minute. Candy and gum and cigars, stuff like that. Okay, well, my husband picked something up once when the checker and I were busy and we didn't see it. I got home before I realized he had something I hadn't paid for. So the next time we went into town, I went to that store, I showed them what he'd picked up, and I paid for it. And I explained why, and fine. It was an example, a little witness of honesty, and I think they appreciate things like that. Also, never try to get an answer from him if you've lost something and it's his fault. But anyway, never ask him about it. Just look for it. It'll just frustrate him if you ask him because he can't tell you. And so just look for it. You'll finally see a little pattern maybe of where he puts things. It might be on his pillow or maybe in his truck. For my husband, the truck. It was the truck. He loved his truck. Or out on the picnic table, whatever. Just go find it and don't talk about it. You save that stress. And don't start projects that he's going to disturb. I love jigsaw puzzles. Can you imagine trying to do a jigsaw puzzle with someone that has Alzheimer? I had it out on the table, and you know how you do your own thing and sort the pieces? Well, I'd put a piece in, and he'd come by, and he'd take out my piece. And then he'd put another piece in that didn't go anywhere, and he'd move my pieces around. It was so stressful. Well, of course, I realized how dumb of me to try and do a jigsaw puzzle. So you learn that. Just don't even do it. Wait until another time. I also learned not to use appliances like my deep fryer because when I wanted it to cool off, he kept plugging it back in. And I learned the hard way about knives. She mentioned knives. I woke up one morning and there was a knife in between me and my husband in bed. He had been up during the night, taken a knife to bed with him. The other thing I think is probably not what most people would tell you, but anyway, let him do what he can when he can, but don't make it necessary. And if it's going to save you stress, do it for him. I really think sometimes we try to make them do things that they just can't do, and it's just stressful for both of you, especially like for dressing. If you don't want him to wear 3 shirts at once, then you be there when he's dressing, and you hand him what he should put on as he should put it on. And then he'll be dressed the way you want him. Otherwise, it could be very interesting. But it's one way, and then be sure you buy shoes and clothes that are easy for him to put on. Not only will it be easy for him, but it'll be easier for you when it gets to that time where you have to dress him. Keep all those things in mind. And keep up your visits with your friends. One time I baked, it was Christmas, I baked a plate of wonderful cookies to bring to my neighbor, and we trudged down to my neighbor's. And while she was making coffee for us, my husband proceeded to eat all of the butter cookies off the plate. That was his favorite cookie. And she saw it, and she just looked at me and did like this, don't say anything, let him eat them. He ate all of them. And another time, at the grocery store, and this was really funny, he had a tug of war with the checker. The items were out of the cart, and she needed the cart to put the bags back, and he wouldn't let her have that cart. And it was so funny. We laughed so hard. She finally managed to get it, but things like that are just, they're going to happen, and, find the joy in it. Look for the joy in it. And here's another thing that I thought I'd never do because it's not me. But rather than giving yourself a backache trying to reach in the shower to wash him, get in the shower with him. We had a really small shower. We didn't have one of these nice ones that I got now. It was just one of those little things that you buy and put in your bathroom. But I got in the shower with him, and I showered with him. And not only is it good because then I could help him easier, but then I showered myself, so I knew where he was when I was showering. It's always kind of in the back of your mind, what's he doing while I'm in here, So, and do things ahead of time, like buy a waterproof mat for your bed before you need it, because you will. And later on, when he couldn't straighten his fingers to put them in his gloves anymore, we just got mittens. It kept his hands warm. So these little things are something that you can do. When it becomes difficult to do something like going for a ride in a boat or going for a walk, then just give it up. Don't worry about it. The one funny thing that happened to us was we lived on a little lake, and we had a rowboat, and we would row down to the end of the lake and visit our friends that were good friends of Bob's too. And one time when I was rowing, I noticed that he's sitting in a seat and he's leaning farther and farther and farther back. And so I thought, oh my goodness, he's going to fall over. So I put his hands on the oars, and then we rowed together, and he had to, of course, lean forward to reach them. But then he got tired of that, so he's sitting again, and he actually did lean himself right over, fell over in the boat, and he's laying on the floor of the boat, and his legs are on the seat, and he can't get up, of course, and luckily, we were down where we needed to be. We were right close to the dock. But I laughed so hard. You know how hard it is to help someone when you're laughing? And he was laughing, and we just couldn't. Finally, I got him up. But, I mean, some things like that are just crazy. The one thing, through it all, if you don't take anything else with you, take the word whatever. Get that in your head and think of it every time something happens. Like if he's out mowing the lawn without starting the mower, that's a whatever. Let him mow as much as he wants to. Or if he turns down the covers on the bed after you've made it, every time you make it, what makes a difference if your bed isn't made anyway? Just let him do it. Or if he likes to sit in the truck, like my husband liked to sit in that truck, let him sit in the truck. Take the keys. I mean, don't let him have the keys, but let him do it. Or if he falls asleep at the table when you're out having a meal with somebody, just let him sleep. And one of the whatevers, a big one that I had to get used to, was the fact that he liked to let our dog in the chicken pen. I love fresh eggs. I love fresh roasted chicken. I love all that. And our chickens were, big part of our farming life. And so after, the first time, the dog just sat there and watched them. Then the next time he was thinking it'd be kind of fun to maybe chase him around. So he did that. And then the next time he caught one, and I decided, okay, it's time to do something. What did I do? I gave away the chickens. Problem solved. Anyway, and make a scrapbook of his life. That was something I did mention, because then you can sit down and talk with him about what he used to do, or he might recognize things and so on. Or if you do have to put him in a memory care place, it's so good to have that to give the nurses. Then they know what he was like before they met him. And that's important for them too. So try to do that. Make the scrapbook, keep a journal. Those are all just really important as far as I can see. And remember that word. Whatever. In the scheme of things, most things are okay. The last thing I want to say is lean on the Lord and accept help from the people that He motivates to help you. They will be blessed, and so will you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Bonnie, for your words of wisdom and your humor. We have to not forget that we've got to bring joy to our lives every day. There's going to be some stuff that just right at that moment doesn't seem funny, but when we look back at it, it's probably going to give you a giggle later on. We just thank you. Just like Bonnie shared, we've got to talk about caregivers. An effective caregiver keeps physically and mentally healthy and takes steps to keep that way. A smart caregiver is one that manages their finances and makes sure that resources are in place to care for them as they age. A responsible caregiver makes documents and openly discusses decisions about the conditions under which they would want to live. A strong caregiver understands that they must fill up before they can pour out. Successful caregivers treat themselves to the activities they enjoy, and they share their talents with others. Protect the primary resource of your family. That is you. You must keep up with your own physical health, your own financial health, your emotional health, and your spiritual health. We can never say this enough. You must have your village.
To know that Alzheimer's can happen to absolutely anyone, just as cancer can. When we were growing up, Mum was absolutely bonkers. She was super, super fun. She was always the first mum to get involved in the kids' sports day. She was so hands-on. I don't remember a day where we just sat and watched telly. Mum really didn't care what people thought, and the more fun we were having, the better. 10 years ago, we started to think something was maybe a little bit off with Mum. At the time, we put it down to a little bit of depression because of my parents' breakup. Then we started to notice more sort of worrying changes. like hitting a lamppost when she's driving their car, or putting odd objects like in the freezer or in the washing machine. We went to UCH and the doctor there suggested Mum did these various verbal tests and then sent her for an MRI, and after that a lumbar puncture to confirm the results which were seen in the scan, that she did in fact have posterior cortical atrophy, a form of Alzheimer's where it is the back of the brain which affects vision and motor skills that is initially affected. She was devastated. She cried. She said she wished there was nothing wrong with her. She was embarrassed. Within the first year of Mum's diagnosis, she didn't know what day, month, week, year it was.
Have a cold drink?
She lost the ability to read, write and draw very, very early on. They were the three things she loved the most in life. Mum was a fine artist, and for those things to be taken very early was tragic for Mum.
I'd like to go back yet, to go to my paintings, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be really nice, wouldn't it?
It would be good, yeah, it would be lovely. It really is heartbreaking to watch someone you love for such a long period of time just change. But the diagnosis definitely brought my family a lot closer together. We very quickly adjusted and always promised that we would do whatever was needed to keep Mum happy. We've learnt it's so important to stay interactive with someone with Alzheimer's and not just treat them as if there's nothing behind the eyes. Laws was always a big dancer. She used to hoik around the dance floor at any opportunity. A couple of times we've been accused that Mum doesn't have Alzheimer's, she's too young. If the symptoms and the signs are there in your 40s, then they're there. And the more research and the more funds we can put into research, the sooner we can find a cure for it. You know that eventually we will get there. I just hope more people look into it a little bit more and really think about how further research could really help stop this happening to other families.
Welcome back. I am Inga Lake, co-founder of EPAGA Home Care, and I will be the moderator for the upcoming question and answer segment of this seminar. I am delighted to be here, and I am extremely proud of this team's work in putting together this presentation. It's fair to say that we are all forever learners, so the opportunity to share with others who want to know more about Alzheimer's and dementia gets us pretty excited, actually. Sliding into our panel discussion, we will have Bonnie Upton, Marty Meyer, Kerry Nagel, and we're also welcoming Delores Moore and Carol Savage to the panel. Delores is a cherished caregiver at EPAGA Home Care, as well as a wife and primary caregiver to a husband who lives with the daily challenges of an ever-changing Alzheimer's disease. Carol is a registered nurse, bringing forth over 35 years of healthcare experience. She is a uniquely qualified resource specializing in professional care management, education, and advocacy. I think I'd like to start off by giving the floor to Delores to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, the other day I was thinking, I have always been a caregiver.
You want to take
Even when I was a young person, my mother had 7 children. She went to work, so I was always caring for my brothers and sisters. And so later in years, I'm back to caregiving again. And one of the things that I've kind of been thinking about today is there is different types of Alzheimer's or dementia, and each one of those persons are different. They have different symptoms, they do different things all the time. But if you know that, or have an inkling of an idea that that might happen to you as a caregiver to take care of a family member, try to prepare yourself ahead of time. With your home, not only the home, but your spiritual life and financial, just all of the different realms of life that you have. I've worked for Agape for, I think, 5 or 6 years, and I've taken care of a number of dementia people. They're always a joy. You may hear the same story over and over again, but that's okay. And you let them know that that's okay. You don't have to feel bad. And you giggle with them, you love them, you hug them. Just be with them. They just want your companionship and friendship and love. I think that's about it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Delores. We'll go ahead and hand the microphone over to Carol Savage, and Carol can give us a little introduction to herself.
Along with my years of professional experience, I bring personal experience. I cared for my mother with dementia, a brother with multiple health challenges, oversee the estate of my sister who suddenly passed away, and have been a resource for others in my family who have had disabilities. What I've professionally have been able to bring to this part of my world and personally is to be there in the moment with each of those that I care for, be it professionally or personally. We all navigate this journey in our own way, and each moment that we share with that individual is unique. And that's the moment that you have. You're doing the best you can as a caregiver, and they are doing the best they can. So that's important, to look yourself in the mirror and understand that every day. That while maybe the neighbor down the street seems to have it all together and managing their loved one without any difficulty, we don't know the inside story. We know a small portion. So be the love for yourself and for the one you're taking care of. That's all I have.
Wonderful. Well, I would ask that our viewers, if you have any questions, please, we encourage you to type them in. We would love to. We have a beautiful panel of these wonderful, knowledgeable, experienced ladies. So please definitely send your questions in so that we can get to those. And it does look like we do have a question. What books do you recommend to get a better understanding of the path ahead? And I'll just go ahead and open that up to this whole panel. What literature, what books, what do you recommend?
When I went to that seminar I mentioned in my little talk, and they talked about the different steps and everything that could happen, they recommended this 36-hour day book, and I recommend that you have it, but use it as a reference. Don't just read it cover to cover, because then you're going to have all those things in your mind, and you might worry about things that may never happen. But it is very good, if something is going on and you want to know, what do I do now, or what's the best way, that book is helpful.
Wonderful. And the great news is we have a copy of this book and we'll be giving it away to the person that asked the question. So please message into us your contact information and we'll make sure to get this out to you. This is a great resource and I appreciate that a lot.
Inga?
Yes.
The other book that you have in there, Creating Moments of Joy,
yes,
by Jolene Brackey. She's a local gal. And she's a really good motivational speaker. Excuse me. And I remember when I bought that book, I took pages and pages and pages of notes because it comes back to my part of for better or for worse. You have to search out the better because the worse is in your face all day long. You have to look around and find those moments of joy or it drags you down too much. So yeah, it's a really good book.
Yep, I agree with that. Jolene Brackey is just a tremendous speaker, and over time, we've had the opportunity to attend some of her seminars and actually bring her here and put on some of that continuing education. So if you out there can get a hold of this book, and again, we'll be sending it out, so send those questions in so we have somebody to give these books to. But Jolene Brackey does a phenomenal job. She is so real, and I think when we're dealing with this disease, while there's the clinical component to it, we have to put that aside and just understand that we're taking care of people, and how do we do that, and how do we find those moments of joy.
Can I yak a little bit more about that book? The thing that I love about it is just what you brought up. It is not the technical part of dementia care that she works on. It's the human part. And there's only so much the medical community can do about dementia. The rest of it is us. Being as human as we possibly can and touching into them. And that's where those moments of joy are. But we have to really learn how to plug into people. Because once they're plugged in, you can go about and enjoy the next hour, before something weird might happen. But, wow, sorry.
No, I love that. Wonderful. Well, I had this question for Marty, but I think I'd like to go down the panel. Because I think we all realize that sometimes caring for those with Alzheimer's or dementia, it's really tough. And so I guess my question would be, how do you use your faith and identity in Christ to love those who at times may seem unlovable?
What a great question. And I told you guys earlier, I was thinking of my husband when that came out. If you're watching, I love you. Faith has to be authentic, and you have to live authentic lives. And in my own journey and with my own story, one of the things that I have learned is that what you see on the outward is not necessarily the actual book. And you touched on it so well too. We don't always know somebody's story based on what we see with our outward eyes. And so I have, in working with women, I have often prayed, Lord, help me see what you see and that I don't, and to invest in that person, no matter what it looks like. The fact that the Bible tells us that while we didn't even care about God, while we were broken and lost, he sent his son. Before we even ever acknowledged him, he was fully invested in us. And how incredible. My mind can't even wrap itself around that truth, that there's a love out there that is so strong and so beautiful that when we don't have it to give, he is there, his love through us. And just to roll up your sleeves and to get in the ditch with somebody and their brokenness, moment by moment. We always say, God is our daily bread. And I like to say, every present second, he's not our monthly loaf. And people need us in the moment, in every present second, and celebrating who they are, no matter what it looks like.
And I might add, it says in there that in the Bible that we're supposed to pray constantly. And you know what? if you're a believer and you really love the Lord, you'll find that you pray a lot more than you used to. And it is just a constant thing. And he comes through. But we need to keep in mind that he's in charge. He knows what's going on, and he'll help you through it.
Well, my spiritual beliefs, here I go again. My spiritual beliefs are more Eastern. And through yoga practice and meditation, I spend quite a bit of time. I wrote while Marty was talking, she was talking about the spirit can always sense love. And right next to that, I wrote in big letters, energy. Mm-hmm. Yep. When people with dementia start to lose their language, mm-hmm. that's when I really realized that we all speak with our language, with our spoken language. But when that part of us starts to shrink and we can't use our words very well anymore, just below that is a level of reading each other's energy, and we all have that. Yeah. But I don't think that we rely on it because we rely on our spoken language. And if we can start cluing in more to body language and our energy reading, I do believe, like, if we lose our sight, our hearing gets better. I think with dementia, when they start to lose their language ability, they start to become much more able to read the energy in the room. Mm-hmm. And when we think that our people don't know us, they don't know our name. They know our energy as we walk in the room. They know our spirit. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to plug into that better. We really do. Yep. Plus, as a caregiver, in a different form of prayer, to go inside yourself and to really start breathing. If you're heading into giving someone a shower, take a minute, center yourself, breathe. And a lot of times, if they're standing next to you and you hold their hand, start audibly breathing and see if they might join you in that, because a lot of times they will. Or start bringing your arms up, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Mm-hmm. They will start following your movements. It brings the blood pressure down. Everybody's nice and calm. Let's step into the shower. Right?
Mm-hmm. Lovely comments. I think in my own journey with being a caregiver and professionally caregiving for others, some of the things that have really helped me is centering in on my own beliefs, which are basic Christian beliefs. But knowing that this person, I've been called to be there for that person. For whatever reason, this is what we're here to do. And focusing on that and in those moments of each day. Not that I can make all those changes, because it's not always up to me. It's up to that person above. And I'm grateful for that and sharing that part of that journey. So that's what's carried through. Some of the things as a caregiver that have been difficult are managing plans, backup plans, tough decisions when family dynamics might be involved, or wishes might have changed because the loved one may have changed in their mental processes. So 10 years ago, they said they wanted this done should something happen. And now, since their disease has progressed, they're saying, no, I don't want this done, and I've been adopted. I don't know any of these people. Mm. You have to hone back in. I had to hone back in that situation to where was this person really at this time and at that time, and how to look at this. So those things have helped, and I hope they help you.
I want to kind of step back. For my husband, he reads me all the time, better than I can read myself. When I walk through the door, he can feel how I feel after a day's work. If I'm sitting there, he'll say, "What are you thinking about? Your mind's working." You know, and the thing of it is, it's amazing how he can pick up on all of that. But I thank God too that we have God in our lives, and that we both have surrendered our lives to Him, and it's God's will that we go through this journey together.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies, so much. So we have a question in. This one is for Bonnie. My mom is in a lot of denial about my dad's diagnosis. Do you have any advice about how I can help her accept the situation?
I've been sitting here looking at that question and thinking, how in the world am I going to answer that? Do I have any advice? I guess if you accept the situation yourself, I guess the best way is just to show her how you're doing it. And if she's in a different place, that's hard to do. But we had one member of our family that just didn't really believe it, and until he took my husband hunting and had an embarrassing situation with him on that hunting trip, and then he understood and he believed it. But I don't know how you help except to just tell him to reach out, talk to other people, I guess, you know. I really can't answer.
Yeah, no, you're doing great.
Yeah. So I guess that's all I can say. Anybody else have a bet you do good?
Yeah, I've got a family that I work with who, unfortunately, the people who are in charge of the financial purse strings are the ones who are not really wanting to deal with any of it. So I suggested, and they're out of state, I suggested have them come over, invite them, even for a weekend. It's not going to take long. And, you know, they really have to see firsthand, wow, this is a lot more chaotic than I realized. And the fact that she has a diagnosis helps quite a bit. There are a lot of people who do not have a diagnosis.
Right.
And so I usually think, well, let's not go into whether we're in denial or not. Let's get a diagnosis. Because a lot of times this might be something other than dementia. There's a whole host of things that the doctors really need to rule out until they get to a diagnosis. And so many people get stuck just in that section. And so don't worry about whether this is dementia or not until you actually get a diagnosis. But your doctor should be ruling out UTIs, other brain issues, vitamin deficiencies. There's a whole host of things that really need to be sorted through.
Anybody else? No? Okay. What are some techniques caregivers can use if they get frustrated when working with Alzheimer's patients? What things can we tell ourselves to remember about what these patients are going through?
I'll start.
Wonderful.
This is my life. One of the things you can tell yourselves, first of all, is I often go back to what part of the brain is being affected right now. And to realize that this is a physical disease. Something is going on in the brain. One of Bonnie's really good points is they're not doing any of this stuff on purpose. Right. Yep. But it really helps you to know this is a brain issue. And if you have to remind yourself of that a million times during the day, you have to. It's not a personality issue. This is not them being pissy with you. Right. This is them having a brain issue. So that's part of in the midst of things, taking that breath, stepping back, breathing, always come back to the breath. But when it's all done, that's a whole nother step. Once the wrestling has finished, to separate yourselves, stay where you can see them, maybe sit behind them for a while, and just be super quiet for half hour, 45 minutes. Then get a snack, come and sit next to them. Divide that snack in front of them. You keep half, you give them the other half. You're literally breaking bread. And you see that neutrality starting to happen again. And then you watch their energy. When they start to get up or to talk, to make eye contact again, they're ready for engagement again. But anytime, I think anytime you have activity, getting ready for the day, going to an appointment, being out for a walk, having lunch, all of these things should be followed with some rest. Remember, their brains are shrinking. We cannot ask that much of them. So if they're going through the day, they say, oh, I'm dressed, or I've just taken a shower, let them rest. Get ready for lunch, let them rest. Afternoon walk, let them rest. That way it keeps them, it's kind of like how diabetics eat. They eat more often because their body has to take care of all of that sugar. The same thing with their brain. You can't just keep at them, oh, we have to stay active, we have to stay engaged. Everything I read says stay engaged. It's stay engaged throughout the day. It's not stay engaged all day. It's too much to ask of them. That leaves them tired, and tired, we all know when we're tired, we get more frustrated. But to really give them that time to sit still and to just calm down. They're not going through, I can't believe she did that to me. They're not reworking it all in their heads. You're probably doing that, but they're not. This is both of your times to just completely come back to neutral. And I always follow it with a snack.
Yeah, wonderful. Anybody else? No? Okay, so let's see. Next question. How do you determine when to bring in professional caregivers? Who wants to jump on board?
I probably did a poor job of that. I guess I'd be good one to talk. Because we had the store, and since he wasn't there, I had to run it. You know, I was in charge. And so I had to continue to go to work. And for the beginning of this, after he was diagnosed, he was still able to be home alone. And at the time, he still could drive safely. And so he would pop in at the store sometimes or go, whatever. But when I decided it was time for me to stay home with him and be with him, was something really embarrassing happened with him and going over to our neighbor. And I won't even go into details. But I thought, this can't happen. I have to be there, or I have to get some help. I was fortunate to find a person who would come 2 days a week, which gave me 2 days to leave it all, go to work, and my mind was completely taken over with work, and then come home and have the next day. So hopefully you can be lucky to find someone like that can just relieve you for a while. Might be somebody from church. I had a neighbor guy that said, you know, if you need to go to town or something, I'll sit with him. He offered. It was awesome. And the same way with the church. I had friends at church, and one lady that helped quite a bit. She'd say, you know, I'll sit with him, no problem. But they need to know you need the help before they're going to offer it.
Sure.
Some of the things to think about ahead of time, even before you get to that point, are what are the local resources? Agency on Aging, respite, lifespan respite through DPHHS, the Mont Guides through MSU Extension. Those kinds of things for long-term planning, and what's the plan, what's the backup plan, and how do I navigate this? Even though you think you can handle it all on your own and with the family you've got, there's going to be times when you need that backup and you need a solid ground.
Well, when to bring in a professional caregiver is before you think you need it. I find that most families are at least 6 months behind in their decision making. We wait until, and part of it's our own sense of denial. Like, we all have it. We don't want to deal with it. La 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 la. But like I was saying earlier, start with companionship care, and with the idea that will transition into more care. Cast a wide net. Use all of the volunteers in the church groups and neighbors, whoever you can. But to bring in a professional caregiver, what you're doing with that is you want somebody who understands what normal is and can make good decisions based on, okay, this is not normal for this person. Today this is not normal. I'm going to bring this to the family's attention. Something's not right. Or to bring to the family's attention something that the caregiver sees. If you're a professional caregiver, you've been in these situations a lot. The family's only been in this situation with this person. Right. So you have more eyes looking at more things. But really, before you think you need it is when you really need to start at least planning and laying the groundwork, interviewing with companies. And another resource, I think we have to wait a little bit further because of COVID, but another thing that I think is really a neat resource is daycare. There are some places in the valley that offer daycare. So if you need to go to work, you can drop your loved one off. I had one client who dropped his wife off, and she said, "Oh, we're going to the women's club." It was awesome. She made all kinds of friends there. She loved it. And she had lunch, and he dropped her off with a change of clothes in case incontinence was a problem. And he said, "Oh, it'll be so difficult." And I go, No, these people are used to this. They will know exactly what to do. And most daycare places also have respite care. So if you need a night alone or you need to travel for some reason, once they're already used to going there and they're in their computer system and the daycare place knows what they like and don't like for lunch, and they know what person they might get along with really well, to be able to have them stay overnight once in a while is awesome. Again, it's a soft transition because, like Carol was saying, you have to have a plan B. If you're up skiing and you break your leg, what happens when you don't make it home for the caregiver? Right. If you already have an in with a daycare place and you're already in their computer system, it's pretty easy to have them become a resident after that.
Yeah. Wonderful. So Marty, you just emulate love. Like, you are love. And I just wanted to know from you, what do you see as the greatest reward of loving others?
Wow. You know, the greatest reward of loving others is never based on the outcome of what you did. I mean, that matters and that makes us feel good, but I think the greatest reward of loving others is that you've loved and that it's not about you, and that, just like all of you so beautifully said, you know, it requires this selflessness and honoring the person that is struggling. And sometimes I have to ask myself, you know, how can I honor well? Because if I honor well, then I'm also honoring their creator well. And it's about shining our light no matter where we are. And for me, that is the greatest reward, is that the growth that it does in my own life. You know, that somehow in the smallest place, I was able to deposit a seed of hope in their spirit, or like you said, they pick up on the energy was there, and it made a difference in that moment. So
wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. So this question is going to be for everybody on the panel, so you guys can decide where you start. What would be the one takeaway that you would offer to someone recently who has recently lost a loved one to Alzheimer's or dementia?
He'll experience quite a letdown at first, because all of a sudden your life is gone. You haven't been, more than likely anyway, you haven't been able to be involved anymore in your own things, although thankfully God let that still be possible for me, because my husband kept going with me everywhere. But for some, it means you lose contact with, the groups that you used to go to and everything. And so after your time of settling in and getting things in order again, then gradually start to go back into those groups, like if you went to Bible study fellowship, or if you had a women's club or homemakers or anything like that. Gradually get back into those yourself. And for me, it was not so much that as it was I developed a real passion for like a separate little mission after my husband died, that I was alone now. And there are so many people out there who are alone, not maybe just because they had somebody die of Alzheimer's, but they're alone. And to bring them joy and give them something to do, and that became my mission, and that fulfilled me. And so I got right back into life again. Might be a little more gradual for some people. For me, it was dive in.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I would expect nothing more, nothing less from you, Bonnie. You know, and my thought about there's a sense of widowhood, even if they're going into a memory unit. That person that you've been spending a big chunk of your life with is no longer in the room with you. Mm-hmm. And like I was talking about earlier, if you've been a caregiver for a long time, your life is so altered, you may not know yourself anymore. You are not the same person you were when you started this. So I encourage you to stay really open to everything, because something completely different might catch your eye that you were never interested in before.
Yeah.
And some of that might come from having relationships with people of different generations that might bring you into something different, or community involvement, volunteering with something that you never even thought about before.
Yeah.
Take a class at the community college, you know, just whatever sparks your interest. Maybe $100 you're spending, but it's something like, wow, okay, ceramics. Sure. Try different things, because you really aren't the same person. And you've learned completely new skills. You've learned a lot of patience, and you probably have more curiosity about what else is out there. But the first couple of months, I would say, just do a lot of sleeping. You really, you're exhausted, and you really need to replenish.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and add into the takeaway, or should we move on to our next question?
I can move on.
All right. So, Carol, this one is for you, and it's a big one. It's a big question. You do professional care management, and so you're kind of in the thick of all of these things. And I guess, what is the top priority issue that comes to mind when you think of helping someone start to prepare legal documents or those important pieces of paper, and this person has started to have confusion? Good luck. I'm teasing. You'll be great.
So the things to discuss before all these things happen is, what do you want done, and how do you want your loved ones, what do you want your loved ones to know, and how to care for you, and what degree of care do you want, and how to manage things as you're becoming unable to make these decisions. If there's a degree of confusion already and you want to make all these legal documents, you kind of have to look at what degree of confusion there is. Specifically, are they able to make these decisions? But hopefully before that, maybe look at some advance directives, or the 5 wishes, or power of attorney, a living will, estate planning. And that's where the MSU extension, the Mont Guides, can come into play and help you out through some in Self-Help Law Center, or if you need to seek attorney assistance. And that's where family dynamics can come into play. Oftentimes we see typical things such as a will, power of attorney, and some advance directives, but those are pretty typical across the board.
Okay, we have another one. And this is also a big one. What is your recommendation on how to handle disagreements among siblings when making decisions for caring for parents? Anybody and everybody.
First, look at what the individual may want and understand the siblings may have their own acceptance of where things are at. That's my comment.
If you have enough people in your family, I always feel really bad for the single person who's dealing with everything. But there's usually somebody in the family who's a little more savvy with money. They should be doing the finances. And everybody else just, it's not your deal. Somebody else will be the one to pick up the medical stuff. The siblings who are out of state can do some research. If they're good on the computer, they can be checking out different facilities. It's nice if everything is just kind of divided. Mm-hmm. That way you have your own thing that you're in charge of, and it's less arguing because you have your own thing that you need to be handling, and it's kind of an agreement. Nope, this is my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, this is the last question for the panel, and what would be your parting remarks for the audience? You can just start on either end or in the middle. Ms. Delores.
I think the most important thing is to remember that they are a human being and that you need to give them all the love and understanding that you can give them. And for yourself, take care of yourself too. Yep. Because you're the most important thing to that person at that moment. And I know personally myself, I don't let my family take on the responsibility of my husband yet, because Ed's not at that point. But my kids are very aware, and I make it a point to say, hey, don't forget about your dad. He's here. He's only 2 miles away from you. You need to be seeing him more often. And sometimes we see our church family more than we see our family. And so it's really important to make time for that person and for yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Dolores.
That's a really good point. Take inventory as a caregiver. Who is there for you? Who is there for your loved one? Who you thought might have been there may not be or able to be. No discredit to them. That's just where they're at. And just like the stewardess says, when the oxygen mask dropped from the caddy there, is put your own oxygen mask on first to help that other person. That energy and that love will just emulate to that other person when you've taken care of yourself.
And I'll piggyback on Carol's comment about people who drop off, and to make a point of who's stepping in and who's literally stepping away or around. Not everybody is wired for this. Mm-hmm. And they might not be wired for it now, but they may step back in later. So it is important to keep everybody in the loop and let them know what's going on. And to ask them, if you can't step in and help with Dad, can you help Mary, because Mary is bearing the brunt of all of this? Can you do the grocery shopping? Like if somebody is I don't want to deal with this. I don't know anything about caregiving. Okay, you know how to grocery shop, right? And just bring people in those outer circles and see if they over time don't step in a little closer. And if they don't, they just might not be wired for it. Yeah. So cut them a break, but keep them involved somehow. Mm-hmm.
One of the things I did a lot of when this was happening to me was I prayed a lot for extra patience and a special kind of love, because you need a lot of patience. With children, when you're raising children, you need patience for them, but they can learn. I mean, you can teach them things, and they won't do it again, or they will do what you want them to. But with this person, you can't do that. And so patience is really important. And then it's a different kind of love you have to have. It's a whole different situation you're in. But while you're in there, do like my license plate says, look for joy. It's there, but you might have to look for it.
So good, all of your comments. There's so much wisdom here. And I'm just going to bring it back around to what I said, that in times when we don't know how to deal with a difficult situation, that we are always more than just our bodies and our brains, but that we have a spirit that is unaffected by disease and doesn't just stop working, is always present, and just continually pray, like you said, and ask the Lord, you know, how can I reach that part of that person? You can have everything, and if you don't have love, like you all said, you have nothing. And so I think that's why the Bible says, and the greatest of these is love, and God helps us with that.
Okay, well, this will conclude our second annual Loving Through Alzheimer's program. We really appreciate the partnership we were able to put together with the Montana Geriatric Education Center, our panelists, our speakers, those of you in the audience that asked questions. If you still have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us through our Facebook page, and we'll make sure to get those answered for you. But again, we'll conclude the second annual Loving Through Alzheimer's, and thank you all for your partnership. Thank you.